Okay, time for the reassembling part of the video. I also changed the background so maybe we can see a little more clearly what we are doing. So this is really self-explanatory. The little nut in the top of the mag goes to the front of the mag. Just push this stuff in. Push this all back together. There you go. Time for the lower. Alright, let's begin reassembling the lower. So, let's grab this little guy here. That should go right in like so. That's backwards, of course. You're going to line that up with those little holes there. And you're going to take the longer pin goes to the front, smaller pin to the back, and this guy is going to go in the front, and the rounded part will go towards the top, pointing towards the back, like that. And then you'll put a pin through it. Okay, next up, this part's hard to see because it's freaking in there so good. You're gonna take this guy, you're gonna put him in like so. But you're gonna put him in this back spot in here. That'll drop in. When you're putting this spring in, remember, it's gonna go in like that. That is how you want the spring relative to the gun. Here's your pin. And this is the hole you'll be using. But start the pin from this side. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, now I could not show you on video. You're gonna want to use a bigger punch. Once you get that pin started through there, you have to be pushing down on your spring while pushing on the pin, so the pin can lock down that spring. You'll know you did it right when you push on this. There's tension. There's a good amount of tension. You can see it moving down there. Next, we're going to put our hammer on. Remember, the pin only goes one way. And this only goes one way. So we will get this ready. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna do this upside down. Makes it everything kind of work a little easier. Fight it a little bit sometimes. And you'll put it in all the way in the back position. We'll go in just like so. And that won't actually go forward unless you are pushing this button that we installed earlier. So with that forward, you're going to grab your hammer spring and we'll proceed to the next step. Okay, so while this is upside down, kind of see that round there? Let's put your hammer, grab your spring, it doesn't matter which way. Make sure you get it over that little guy. Perfect. You're gonna grab your lantern loop, and this is part of the hard part. You need to push this all the way down while getting this pin started and through. I recommend turning this upside down, pushing against the table. We might even push it in all the way and then install your magazine release. You don't have to install the button, but the metal part will hold this. So that mag release goes through that hole there. So keep it in place while you get everything else together. Show you what it looks like after that. Okay, what you're gonna wanna do is as you're pushing this down to get that spring compressed, you wanna grab your mag release. It's only gonna go in one way. And you're gonna wanna throw that through that hole, and that'll hold that there so you can get other stuff started. We'll worry about the button later on that. Now you're going to want to put this pin through there. You're going to want to push that in more. We'll come back. Okay, once you get that pin through, you can take out. Well, mine fell out because I had it stand there, but you'll see how this goes in. It's your mag release. Put that in, put that spring in. This will go over, and you'll have to compress this down. If I have the right side, you have to compress that down while you're driving the world's smallest pin through. And you can see mine is already starting to bend. See how small it is, and you'll see the pinhole. You're just going to want to drive that in, and you'll be all set. Okay, what you want to do is get your punch set through there, and then you're going to want to start to remove your punch. You're going to start that pin through there. You're going to have to use a bigger punch driving down that way. It's a pain in the ass. Okay, as I was working that pin in, I was pulling this one out. I had a larger one here, hammering it in, and just make sure the pin's flush on both sides, which I gotta do. And that bottom is all set. Next, let's install the trigger. You're gonna want to feed it from the top, going down, as a one-way pin. One's side's larger than the other. It's gonna be on the left side. You're gonna want to start it, but don't go all the way through. There is a spring. Spring has a hook in it. You're gonna want this to be placed in there exactly like this. Once you get that in there, the trigger won't have any tension, the spring won't have any tension on it yet. That comes next. Okay, a little trick, you're going to want to have the trigger all the way pulled back while you're trying to get that trigger spring in there. As you can see, it looks something like that. Next is kind of tricky. Okay, next, on our thing's name, I don't really know what it's called. Trigger rod. It just goes in the top of the trigger hole there. And you're only going to push it in a little bit. Make sure the back just lines up back here, because you are going to have a fun time getting that trigger spring over this bar. You see the spring back there? It has to go over that part of the bar. You have to do that as you're pushing it in, and you have to pull that spring up. Last time I used a punch, I made this little guy. We'll see how he works. But you have to try to get a hold of your spring. And this guy's too wide, so we're going to use a punch. You gotta get a hold of your spring as you're pulling it back. And once you get it back past this point, that's when you pop that over. The spring will lock on. You're gonna have a fun time. We'll show you what it looks like after. Okay, as you can see, barely, I was able to get the trigger spring around the hook. See the hook there? And then I was able to push that in. Didn't get there. Now the trigger, there we go, has tension on it. Alright, then we're going to put the trigger bar spring guy in. It's going to go in just like that. There's just a little hole back here, you'll see it. And I like to do the bottom and the very top. There's the guide, you'll see it rides in. And then just push it up. And that's all you gotta do. Now let's put in our retaining clip. Spring will go down. There's a hole right above the firing pin. Firing, the trigger pin that we put in earlier. Then this you can put in there while that's above there. Just kind of start it in. Put it in just like that. Make sure that spring's in the correct spot. Right there it is. That's that. Okay, we're gonna now put in our retaining top slide spring thing. Spring goes in, like so. First push button to disassemble everything goes in. Make sure that's in the little spring hole. You're gonna push that button in. You grab your slide retainer thing. Just kind of work it in. And you put it all the way down to where it normally sits, but because the top's off, it's going to go right there. And then all you have to do is grab your 4 screws, grab your side grips, one on each side, and then the bottom is all done. Okay, we're gonna put the top back together now. You're gonna take your firing pin and your spring, put that in this little slot, the firing pin that's gonna face to the right of the gun, because your retractor actually is gonna sit inside of that. So we get that in there. Have a little spring for the retractor, ejector. I don't know why I call it retractor. And you're gonna have to push in the firing pin while you get this in. And once you feel that click down, that's in there now. So that is set. We're gonna come, and your top pin has, you'll notice one side goes up, one side goes down. And you're gonna start that. You're gonna wanna make sure it's facing the right way first. Hammer that in, then hammer it flush, and everything should stay. Okay, once you get that top pin hammered in and flush, so it's not protruding from the underneath, just test it out real quick. See, that springs out good. Then you can push in, firing pin feels good. I'll now proceed to installing the safety. Okay, next on our upper safety, we are going to start by reinstalling our little ball. You're going to take the bigger of the 2 springs, insert that in here. Sorry for the shine, I have a little bit of oil on my hands. And you're going to take the ball and you're going to have to punch it in with a large punch. So, once you get it seated like so, you're going to punch it in and it's going to stay in spot. Make sure it stays in its place. Okay, so we just tap that in. You can see it's in there good. And it plays back and forth. So, you are going to hold this forward as you now put in your safety part of the firing pin. This firing pin is only going to go in one way. If you hold the lever up, you'll see that one side is flat. The flat side, it will only go in one way. You can see there, the side is flat, but there's a little flat side on that side for whatever reason. That is like so. Then take your decocking mechanism device, I believe this, something like that, little pin. That's will go in, that's a little hole here. And this is the fun part. You're gonna have to play around with this a bit. Start straight up. And you're gonna just start playing around with it. You need to line everything up and you get to here, you're doing pretty good. You're gonna take a punch, and you're gonna have to carefully hold that. We're gonna do that down here. Let's see, make sure you see where I'm at right now. A little bit ago, all I have to do is, oh, you know, I'm not really to that part yet. You have to, there we go. You're right over that ball, so that ball's gonna be kicking back. Then you grab this, push that in, and you're gonna have to push it down on it. As you squeeze that in, and you should be all set. The safety. Safety on, safety off. Just double check. There's your firing pin, extension. And that pushes, and I can feel its firing pins coming out. So it comes off, that looks good. That ball's working. You can see your decocking lever here is coming in and out. So we are set with that. Next we'll do the barrel. Alright, and we return to the barrel. This guy's just gonna slip in. Like I said, slip in, there we go. Your pin thing. You are gonna insert the flash part out. You can see how it's cut. That's will go in like so. Then you will install your punch pin through that hole. And that is one of those extremely small ones. If you happen to break the one on the mag release, you can use this one as the same type until you get another one, so you can put the whole thing pretty much back together. And then we'll be back. Okay, that pin will be in there. And that should freely go up and down like so. You're now in the final steps, and you're pretty much back to your basics field strip now. Have the lower, you take the upper, take your barrel locking pin, it will go on the upper. Make sure that is locked. See, it's not locked right now. Come on, it takes a little playing around sometimes. There we go. It's locked in there. Take your spring. Don't matter. Again, careful with the spring. You can poke out your drywall if you let go of it. That's just like so. You will take the lower. Raise this up a bit. And like any other gun, that goes on like that. Hold it back.